7th December 1941, a day on which more than 2,000 American soldiers died in a surprise attack. This day shocked whole America. It was the biggest attack on the American Navy in history. The whole base was completely destroyed in the attack. But how can a big attack like this be possible on such a country whose intelligence comes at number one? Why did no one see it coming? What secrets were hidden inside those coded transmissions? And how did a calm Sunday morning turn out to be one of the shocking events of history? This is the mystery of Pearl Harbor. Let's see the whole story. Let's first know why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor Navy base. For that, we will have to go back into the time, during the early 1930s. Japan's invasion of China. Japan wanted to become a major world power like Britain and America. But there were two things that Japan lacked in for becoming a major world power. Those two things are natural resources like oil and iron. And the second thing is large colonies like European powers. So, Japan decided that it had to expand territorially. They decided to capture Chinese territories like Manchuria. During the time of 1937, the Japanese entered in a full-scale war with China. The Japanese aimed to dominate the East and Southeast Asia under the idea of Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, which means that Asia is for Asians, but it must be controlled by Japan. And it was done to remove the Western colonial powers like Britain, French, and America. The Japanese knew that if it was successful in capturing the East and Southeast Asian nations, then they would get all the essential resources they needed like oil, iron, rice, and rubber. Japan was importing 80 to 90% of its oil. That's why they wanted to conquer the areas that are rich in oil fields like Iran and Iraq. And also, the Japanese could set their military bases in the Asian regions too. The Japanese analyzed all the countries in Asia and decided to invade China first. That's because China was rich in oil, coal, iron, and food, and it was viewed as weak and backward. At those times, Japan feared Western countries and their invasion. The Soviet Union was also expanding rapidly. One of the reasons to conquer China was that it can be used as a buffer and a resource base if any war escalates in the future. As there were multiple rulers in China, they could collapse quickly. They first started the invasion with Manchuria, which is located in northeast China. The Manchuria was chosen because of its richness in natural resources like iron ore, timber, and coal. They made a railway track blast through a dynamite at the South Manchuria Railway. This explosion caused minor damage only, but just after this incident took place, Japanese officers blamed Chinese soldiers for killing Japanese people and destroying Japanese property. Immediately after this blame, the Japan forces attacked Manchuria. The attack was during the period of late 1931. The Japanese used railways for fast movement. They deployed tanks, artillery, and aircraft for their quick win. And they finally captured whole Manchuria by early 1932. After conquering this, they started a full-scale invasion all over China. They invaded areas like Beijing and Shanghai during the period of 1937 to 1938. Now that we have learned about Japan's invasion in China, let's understand that why did Japan choose to attack on America? So, during the time of 1940, America condemned Japan's invasion of China. They supported China with money and supplies, along with putting economic sanctions on Japan. In 1941, America cut off its oil exports to Japan. Japan imported over 80% of its oil from America. Without oil, Japan's Navy, Air Force, and industries would stop within months. Japan was in the middle of a war with China during that time. They were left with only three options. First option was to withdraw from China, which would lead to a loss of Japan's prestige and power. The second option was to accept America's demands and become weaker, which Japan would never do. The third option was to fight with the US, which was risky, but it offered a chance to win. They chose the third option. Their plan was to capture oil-rich Southeast Asia counties like the Dutch East Indies, which is modern Indonesia. To do that, They will have to first neutralize the U.S. Pacific Fleet so that it couldn't interfere. That fleet was stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Pearl Harbor was chosen as Japan believed its biggest threat was the U.S. Navy, and a surprise attack could destroy American battleships, which would give Japan a time of 6 to 12 months of free movement in Asia. This mission was kept highly confidential, and only some of the Army's high-ranking officers knew about this. The attack was done in 2 waves, and with more than 300 aircraft. Now let's see how the attack happened. At around 7:30 a.m., a radar station saw a huge formation of aircraft coming towards Hawaii. This was America's chance to fail this attack by Japan, but they ignored it by disguising it as American B-17 bombers. The Japanese took advantage of it, as on that day, American bombers were also going to come at Pearl Harbor base. No one imagined that above the clouds, hundreds of Japanese aircraft were already in formation. On the day of the attack, Pearl Harbor had a total of 96 ships, 8 of which were battleships and 5 were submarines. There were a total of 394 aircrafts at the Pearl Harbor Naval Base. And against them, there were around 350 Japanese aircrafts launched in 2 waves. This was a complete surprise attack. The first wave started at around 7:50 a.m. The first bomb fell on the USS Arizona Navy ship, killing nearly 1,100 American crewmen. And then, multiple bombs were thrown at other battleships like USS Oklahoma and USS West Virginia. Also, the Japanese aircraft targeted American aircraft on the ground to prevent any kind of counterattack. On the base, the U.S. planes were parked wing by wing. That's what made them easy targets. However, some planes made it to the airstrip. Those aircraft were destroyed in the middle of the airstrip, so no single American aircraft was able to take off from that base to counterattack. And that's why in just 90 minutes, nearly 2,500 Americans were killed, more than 1,000 soldiers were wounded, and more than 15 ships were destroyed. Nearly 200 American aircraft were destroyed during this attack. This attack shocked every country worldwide. Because how can a small country like Japan attack such a big country like America in a time when America's military and intelligence were considered among the strongest forces in the world? That's the reason why this day is called Pearl Harbor Day. Till that day, America was not involved in World War II. During that time period, Franklin Roosevelt was the American president. The next day after the attack, on December 8, 1941, the U.S. president declared war on Japan. Congress approved Roosevelt's request to declare war against the Emperor of Japan. This was the U.S.'s official entry into World War II. 3 days after this, on December 11, 1941, Italy and Germany also declared war with the U.S. On the same day, the U.S. declared war against both of them. The U.S. joined the Allied forces, which included members such as the USSR, United Kingdom, France, and Poland. America became one of the top Allied powers. The war finally ended in 1945 after Germany's surrender and Japan's surrender due to the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.